Hello, my name is Chloe, welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my March wrap up. So hopefully I'm going to make this pretty quick fire and speedy because I actually need to leave the house in half an hour and I am so not ready to go yet. And I need to film this video. So we'll see how much we can get through. In March, I did not read quite as much as I was expecting, but I still had a fantastic reading month. I read 15 books, 12 of which were physical and 3 of which were on audio, and that equated to 5,692 pages. That is both a drop in book count and page count from February, but I was doing a lot. I went to America, I went to Turkey, and I left my job. So a lot happened in March, so I'm not mad at that at all. That number of pages equated to an average of 184 pages per day, and per book it was an average of 379 pages. So some pretty chunkier books than I'm used to, which definitely comes back in what's looking at me. So the ratings I gave, I will just have to look down at my notes. I didn't rate one book. I gave one book 2 stars, one book 2.5 stars, 5 books 3 stars, 1 book 3.5 stars, 3 books 4 stars, and 3 books 5 stars. So that is quite an increase in 5-star reads than I normally have. And this meant that my average rating for the month was a 3.3, which annoyingly is quite an average month for me. The book that I didn't rate is one I've been reading for a long time, and that is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. This one, I was just really struggling on what to actually rate it. This is a non-fiction book which looks at the lives of the women killed by Jack the Ripper. It does not focus on their actual murders at all, but just the lives that they led up to the point of their murder. It's very kind of well known, incorrectly, that the women killed by Jack the Ripper were just prostitutes, and this book really highlights how that has really gotten out of hand as an assumption, and some more of the realities about these women's lives. Some parts of this were absolutely heartbreaking and I really felt for these women. I thought it was written in a really easy way, like a digestible way to understand, and nothing about this was too complicated. However, it did take me over a month to read, which isn't ideal. Because this was February's Chloe's Crime Scene Corner pick. So it did take me a long time to read. That is kind of my fault. I just wasn't really connecting with it and really sitting and making myself read it. But when I did read it, I enjoyed it. So not one I'm gonna rate because I'm not sure if it was me or the book. And it's also really hard to judge facts of women's lives. Because yes, this would have been more exciting if it discussed the murders. That is because of my own messed up opinion on true crime, and completely not what the book was setting out to do. So no rating for this, and I'm going to send it out into the world and hope that somebody else gets a really good time out of this. Next up, the book I gave a 2-star rating, and God, I'm hoping next month's book club read is better, is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This was March's pick for Chloe's Crime Scene Corner, and I didn't really like it. This is a story about 4 men who 10 years ago shot well, it says some elk. I don't know the word of a group of elk. They shot some elk. And 10 years later, they feel as if they're being stalked or hunted. And the easiest way to explain this is a revenge story from nature where it believes it's been wronged. I found the writing quite hard to understand in this one. I did start out reading it physically with the audio side by side, and ended up just switching to audio because I found it more digestible. I was kind of struggling to follow it. That being said, some of the gruesome parts of this were perfect, like so disgusting that I loved it. So parts of this I loved, parts of this I had absolutely no idea what was going on and really struggled with the writing. So 2 stars for this one. Again, being sent out into the world, I hope someone enjoys it. Next up, 2.5 stars went to The Shelf by Helly Acton. I don't have this anymore. I left it with the mother-in-law when I was in America. And this book, for me, perfectly embodies a 2.5 star rating. I didn't like it. I didn't dislike it, so it is smack in the middle of 5 stars. This is about a woman who is in a long-term relationship and she believes that she's going to be proposed to. However, that is not her boyfriend's intention, and he actually drops her off on the set of a reality show called The Shelf, surrounded by a group of women who have also been dumped. And the point of The Shelf is they need to prove on national TV that they are wife appropriate and like the perfect woman. There were some things that were kind of funny in this. I think it'll be more funny to someone who's never watched a reality show. There were definitely parallels to like Love Island. There was a task they had which they have done in Love Island, and some of the things that happened in Love Island. So I think if you had less of a knowledge about reality shows and how they work, it might be better. But yeah, didn't like this one, but didn't hate it, so 2.5. Next up, we have This Book Kills by Ravina Guron, which I was actually sent by Tandem through the publisher Usborne, as it was being released. When? I read it late. It wasn't my fault, it was the post's fault. This is a YA mystery where there is a young girl called Jess who has written a story of how somebody gets murdered, and then that murder actually happens in real life the next day when it's handed in to the teacher. So Jess is trying to figure out who has copied her murder story in real life and who is trying to frame her. It says she wrote the perfect murder, someone carried it out, now she's next. I did really enjoy this one. I gave it 3 stars because I do feel like there is more that the author could have done to this story. Some of the plot devices felt a little bit forced, but overall I did enjoy it. 3 stars for me is a good book, and I would definitely be intrigued by what this author publishes next. So definitely not a failure in my ratings, just didn't absolutely knock my socks off. Speaking of, we then have Never Never by Colleen Hoover and Taryn Fisher, which I also gave 3 stars. This one was upsetting for me because I wanted to love it with my whole heart, because it's Colleen Hoover and I love Colleen Hoover. But sadly, this didn't quite do the trick for me. This is a YA romance with magical realism following Charlie and Silas, who have a random time in the day where they have kind of woken up to not know who they are, where they are, why they don't know anything. And this book follows them over a period of like a week, I want to say, where they're trying to figure out why they can't remember anything. For me, as I just said, and I'm gonna just completely go against myself, 3 stars is a good book. This was a good book, but it might make it onto a most disappointing books of the year because I love Colleen Hoover. I am trash for Colleen Hoover, but this book just didn't do it for me. I feel like there were many parts of this that could have been amazing, and maybe it needed 200 pages more to develop those things. So I'm trying to say it without spoilers. There's a very traumatic event that happens actually, which is not explained really at all. There is a tarot reading section of this book, which I don't think makes any sense. And also the revelation as to why they can't remember anything, I think is awful and is spreading a bad message. As someone who got into a long-term relationship at, I think the characters are 17, I believe they are, and then found myself coming out of it as an adult, I don't like the thing in this book where, oh, it's spoilers, I can't say it, it's spoilers. If you want to have a chat about this book, please drop me a message because I'd love to talk about it some more. Next up, we have The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas, and yes, 3 stars. This is a 500-page contemporary book. I've been quite harsh about this in my reviews. 3 stars is fine, it's good, but I didn't actually like it that much. This is about Catalina, who is going to her sister's wedding in Spain, and she doesn't want to turn up without a boyfriend, like without a date. So she enlists the most infuriating man, Aaron Blackford. She enlists Aaron, who she strongly dislikes, to act as her partner for this wedding. And obviously, it's enemies to lovers, fake dating romance. So yeah. It says perfect for those looking for a steamy, slow burn with the promise of a sweet, happy ever after. And that kind of, it is a slow burn, it's 500 pages. I would say this is a fine book. If you have not read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, you might give this 5 stars. If you have read The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, you will know that this exact plot can be acted out in 200 pages less, and I would recommend that one more than this one. But as an actual book on its own, if you have no knowledge of any other enemies to lovers fake dating romances, it's kind of good, but comparatively, not so much. Okay, I now have 20 minutes before I need to go out and I'm nowhere near done with this list. The next 3-star rating is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, which is another one I've left with the mother-in-law. This is about a small town where there are witches and there are ley lines under the town, and there was a previous breakup between our main character and her ex-boyfriend. I don't remember names, I don't have the book so I can't check. And when he effectively dumps her, she jokingly puts a hex on him and puts a curse on him that will achieve many things that will basically just make him a failure. Nothing seems to happen, but then he comes back to town after moving back to Wales with his family. He then comes back to this American town to recharge the ley lines, and he has the worst luck possible. And when recharging the ley lines, everything seems to go wrong and puts the town in jeopardy. So 3 stars. There was a cute little romance to this. I kind of like the magic sideline, but it wasn't anything outstanding. Next up we have The Love Square by Laura Jane Williams, and again 3 stars. Rachel, don't kill me. I do need to stop reading Rachel's favourite books. This is another one where I'm struggling to remember names and I don't have the book. I left it with the mother-in-law. This is about our main character who runs her own cafe. It's like nice pastries, I'm sure it's a cafe. And then her uncle runs a kind of nice, what I call a nice pub, like a country pub. But he has a heart attack and nobody is available to run his pub restaurant thing. I'm sure that's got a name. So she travels back and starts running this for him. While this happens, she actually finds herself in 3 different romances, and she is trying to figure out what she wants as a person, who she wants to be with, and what the best trajectory is for her. She's also thinking about the fact she really wants a child, and she's getting a little bit older, where this might not be possible forever. Guys, Piano Man has not played in months and he's just started, so I'm gonna finish this quickly. Oh, he's singing too, fantastic. So yeah, I don't remember too much about this book, which maybe shows more about why I rated it what I did. It was fine. It was a fine time while I was reading it, but it has not left any lasting impact on me, and I actually left it in the airport. So if anyone finds a copy of The Love Square and is directed to my YouTube, hello, because I wrote my name in it. Hope to see you soon. Next up, my 3.5-star read was The Boy Most Likely To by Huntley Fitzpatrick. I've been putting this book off for the longest time. I'm glad I finally read it and I can kind of unhaul it, which was the plan. But this is about Tim and Alice. Tim is always the boy who makes the wrong decisions, who makes mistakes, and it has gotten to a point where he's actually been kicked out of his family house until he proves himself. So he is 17, almost 18, and his dad is threatening to withdraw his college funding unless he actually makes something of himself. Alice is one of the sisters of the family from My Life Next Door, if you've read that book, also by Huntley Fitzpatrick. She is 19 and she's actually taken on a lot of the maternal responsibilities for the rest of her family after her dad is very sick and her mom is kind of struggling to manage all of the children, because I believe there's like 8. So she is kind of putting her life on the back burner to help out her family and hoping to become a nurse, I believe. I can't actually tell you about what the main part of this story is that I liked because it's not on the blurb, so I'm going to say it's a spoiler. But it says that Alice is the girl most likely to, well, not date her brother's baggage-burdened best friend, for starters. Through the whole book, we can tell there's an attraction between Tim and Alice, but she does not want to deal with his baggage. He doesn't want to date his best friend's sister. It was interesting. I did like it, 3.5 stars. I read most of it on the plane back from Turkey and had a good time with it. Alice is starting to wonder if the smart choice is always the right one. So we're talking good girl, bad guy. Can he sway her from her path? Easily. Next up we have Haven't They Grown by Sophie Hannah, which I gave 4 stars. I read this while I was in Turkey and it was kind of a buddy read with Chelsea. This is about Beth, who drives past her ex-best friend's house and sees her 2 children that she hasn't seen in 12 years. But strangely, the children are exactly the same age as they were 12 years ago, rather than their age plus 12 years. So Beth becomes obsessed with finding out why. I really liked this book. It definitely went a way I wasn't expecting towards the end, but the main character did great on me the entire time. Beth just should have given up. She should have given up and keeping her nose out of it, but then we wouldn't have had a book. So I really liked how this went. I would recommend it, but it's not the best mystery you're ever gonna read. Then 4 stars to Before by Anna Todd. I completely misunderstood what this was, and I think the title is a massive confusion. This is book 5 in the After series, and I believe it's branded as a prequel because the After series, and then this is Before. So you'd think it was before, after. But no, this is a collection of short stories throughout the After series, told mostly from Hardin's perspective, the love interest, but also from lots of other characters in the series. I won't tell you much about this one because it will spoil the After series. But if you have read that series and you're wondering whether to read this, I definitely would. And the smut in this was top tier. I just had to check my phone because I'm literally going out in 13 minutes. The third 4-star rating I gave was to 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. This is a YA fantasy, and is it YA? I want to say it's YA. About a princess. This princess is betrothed to, he's not a prince. I can't think of who she's betrothed to. She's betrothed and she doesn't want to be betrothed. So on the morning of her betrothal ceremony, she jumps into the lake and comes across a dragon. Of course she does. Her stepmother ends up being an evil enchantress who puts a curse on the princess so that she goes around with a bowl on her head. Yes. And her 6 brothers are turned into cranes. She can't talk and she's got a bowl on her head. And her brothers are animals, but she has to save the land from the evil forces. Princess in exile, a shape-shifting dragon, 6 enchanted cranes, and an unspeakable curse. It will take more than magic to find their way home. Just reading it like that makes it sound ridiculous, and in a way the storyline was very ridiculous, but I really enjoyed it. I found it easy to follow. It was beautifully written as well as being absolutely beautiful on the outside, and I gave it 4 stars. Here we go then. Here are the 5-star books I read this month, starting in order from the one I was gonna say from the one I liked the most to the one I liked the best, but I'd say they're all pretty tied. First up, the one I can't say too much about, well I can, but there'll be no need, is Actual Age Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. I read this for the Sister Along hosted by Victoria, and I will link our live show down in the description where we talked about this book at length for like 45 minutes. So really enjoyed this one. Eve is definitely my favourite of the Brown sisters, and if you've never heard of this book somehow, this is an adult romance following Eve, of course, and her love interest Jacob. It explores lots of things. Eve is struggling to become an adult and act her age and get a job, like a solid job. So she stumbles upon Jacob's B&B where she ends up working as a chef, kind of everything. It also explores topics of autism very, very well in my personal opinion, and I just really enjoyed it. So the live show will be linked down below. Next up, we have Monsters by Emerald Fennell, and I did not expect to like this book as much as I did. 5 stars. Easily. This is about the female character. I cannot remember her name at all. Like, it's gone, and it was gone the last time I tried to remember it. Cannot remember her name, but there's a girl and there's Miles. Miles comes to this seaside town for like a summer holiday, which is where our main character is living with her aunt and uncle. These children are messed up. A woman is pulled from the sea, dead. And our main character just has to get in and have a look and get as close to the body as humanly possible. There are full murders throughout the town. We're talking serial killer. There are some eels in an aquarium that they're trying to get their hands bitten off by, and they may or may not kill a cat. This is the exact level of messed up that I love in a book. It was such an easy read, and I'm so glad I read it. I was buddy reading with Faith, who hated it and gave it 2 stars, but genuinely this might make it on my best books of the year. I just found it absolutely incredible, but I'm not sure I'd recommend it to anyone. Finally, my favourite book of the month maybe is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I did not think I would love this book. I don't like tennis. I kind of really don't like tennis. But Carrie Soto is a character in Malibu Rising, and this book visits her life, her whole life, with only a brief mention to what happened in Malibu Rising. I really enjoyed this because Taylor Jenkins Reid did that thing she always does in these books, where as soon as it finished, I wanted to find out everything about Carrie Soto. I wanted to watch her interviews. I wanted to watch her tennis games because I believed she was real, and I still believe she's real. This book made me really love something and really care about something that I genuinely don't like at all. So she is trying to win the most Grand Slam tennis titles, whatever they're called, and she holds the record for it. But a young competitor comes along and is one Grand Slam away from beating her, well, from matching her record. So Carrie is set out to either stop her from winning this new one or to up her record. That is the entire book, pretty much, but with so much emotion thrown in that I absolutely loved it, and I would recommend this to everybody. So there we have it. I'm now late to do what I would need to do today, but those are all the books I read in March. Please let me know if you want to discuss any opinions on these, particularly Never Never and Monsters. I would love to talk to you about them. But that being said, that's all I have time for. So thank you very, very much for watching this video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.